Welcome to Lead Today with me, Kalina. Let's talk leadership. Hello and welcome back to this series that means so much to me. As I expressed in the first week, this feels really vulnerable for me because of my own story, and to know that there's just even one person listening that is finding comfort from this just means absolutely everything, because it's been such an isolating journey. And again, I did speak about how there is benefit to the darkness, the isolation, that death and renewal, or the growth that comes from that type of season. That being said, I wish that we could all emerge, and of course, not that we have to do it as publicly as me broadcasting this on a public podcast, but my wish and hope for you is that you can do this even with just one trusted person, where you can really, truly, authentically share what it is that you went through in the darkness. And it's interesting because this week is a very exciting week. Some people feel a lot of pressure in week 3. There's this, okay, we need to be intimate now because it's week 3, and there can be pressure surrounding it. There's excitement surrounding it. Hormonally, your body is like already ramping up for things to happen because you have an egg being released. And so this can be a time of great energy and connection for you and your partner. Really, week 3 is a profound moment of fertilization. It's where, there's a union of sperm and egg. There's a big bang, if you will, of creation. I realize that sounds funny after I said it. Yeah, because you're having this. Actually, I was just looking at, apparently it's the zinc when the egg and the sperm meet and then unify. There's this sort of white light. It's been circulating around online, this video of, it almost looks like the Big Bang, quite frankly. And it's like this white ring of light around the egg that sort of shines off when this creation moment happens. And so, how fascinating, right? I mean, if you've read the Bible, it's light in the darkness type of concept. I mean, this moment of creation really is sort of like the Big Bang as we describe it from a universe perspective of the universe being created. And it makes sense to me just so intuitively, right? Like at the smallest possible level, creation is the same as the creation of the entire universe. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, the whole universe is in one, I suppose, 2 cells, or, the sperm and the egg. It's the whole universe can be represented in that unification and in that ray of light. It's actually really, I'll try to link it. I'll find that video and link it if I can. Because it's just it looks like a sun or a solar flare or something, so like it's from outer space, and yet it's this moment of really a moment of a divine spark of life. So yeah, that's all that's happening week 3. In terms of just bodily facts, the mother's body, I mean, so there's fertilization. It's that meeting of the sperm and egg. And so this fertilized egg is now called a zygote, and it's beginning its journey to the uterus, and your body's already shifting to prepare and support, nourish this new life. So now we do in fact have a baby, in terms of, well, I mean, your baby's just a single cell, but it's rapidly dividing into many cells. And that microscopic being, really, I mean, it already contains a blueprint for everything. Gender, hair, eye color. It's the mark of the beginning of life. And how I mean, I can't even fathom how small that is. And yet that's the spark. That's the spark of creation. And it's happened so soon. It's, to me, just fascinating. And if you're somebody that, has experienced loss early on in a pregnancy, I mean, it really doesn't matter when, but early on especially, I think there's this tendency to say, like, oh, it was soon, or at least you didn't, whatever. There are these like justifications, at least whatever. And it's like, you know what? To me, that moment of the meeting of the egg and the sperm, that spark, that divine spark happened. And so you're not taking that away from anybody, because it's happened. It's a factual thing. Things start to change from that exact moment when that occurs. It's different from when that doesn't occur. If there's a month where that doesn't occur, it's a different process. Your body knows when that spark and connection has happened. And so, just sometimes I'm learning more and more. And as I've said, this has been such an isolating journey for me, partially feeling guilty or shameful, or like it should be, or, it's a private thing, all of that, which, again, you don't have to share your life with every single person online to live a good life. I mean, probably the opposite in many ways. There are things that are private and sacred, and I think this is one of them in many ways. That being said, I would be very mindful of whose influence you allow into your sphere, because there are a lot of online forums and women's groups, and I think it can be wonderfully helpful, healing, and supportive. Simultaneously, I was very careful, and this is what helped me, and so just my experience, but I was very careful about who I spoke with about this experience. All of them. I mean, all of just pregnancy and hormones and the woman's body, and even how it relates to spirituality and emotions. I mean, I've been very diligent, and the times that I haven't, the times where, for whatever reason, I shared maybe more than I wanted to, or was in some kind of situation, medical situation, or, like any time that information or conversations were had surrounding pregnancy and my body with people that were coming from a place of fear, or a lack of faith, usually fear is kind of where it's coming from. It really throws me off, and I have to come back to that solitary moment to be within myself and to center myself again. And I think in this week, you are quite literally joining with your partner in a very intimate way, and having that moment of fertilization, of union, of sperm and egg. And so you're unifying. It's a beautiful thing. There's that spark of life. And then there's this sort of 2-week wait that ensues. And so this week there's a lot of exciting energy. We can talk more about kind of the 2-week wait, the challenges. We're talking about week 3, and it's sort of like, but week 3 to week 4 to kind of end of week 4, week 5, you're in this limbo. And that's where there's this peak of excitement right now in this week. But then after that peak of excitement, it can feel like, okay, wait, now what? And who do I talk to? And ruminating thoughts. And is this going to be the month? And you're hoping, and you're praying, and you're wishing, and you're talking about it, or you're not talking about it, but you're absolutely 100% thinking about it. And so it's sort of this mountain, this climactic moment, right? And again, if you're trying, quote unquote, if you're having these intimate moments multiple times throughout this week, maybe last week, maybe into next week, but so you're really on a mission. If you're TTC, trying to conceive, people really get on this mission, and are trying to get to that climactic mountain, that moment of success. And if we're saying, okay, the smallest at a cell, at a microscopic level, there's this blueprint for life, and it's the same exact representation. It looks so similar to the creation of the universe. Then how you do this period of time is exactly how you're going to do the entire mountain of pregnancy, and I would posit the entire mountain of motherhood and of life, and we can extrapolate outward. That's why people say, how you do one thing is how you do all things. It's not necessarily true, because in different settings, you can behave differently. But I think it's an interesting standard to hold ourselves to say, okay, wait, am I putting all this pressure on my partner and us? And I totally understand, because I've done it. So like everything that I'm talking about is because I have tried it that way and it didn't work for me. And it's so human and normal to be that way. And you want something so much that you're putting expectation on it. And yet that very expectation is misguided in a sense. And I man, if I could I wish I could take every single woman that's in that position and, I don't know, like hug you at the same time as like give you the realization that I had. It was such a hard won realization for me to completely release the control. It's a control question. And in week 3, it's this, am I going to hit the mark this month? And from a partner perspective, there can be pressure there too, and that can be hard. And then being intimate doesn't even feel fun anymore, and it's just really a chore, or you're on a schedule and there are tests, ovulation strips, and things just become like completely devoid of the love that is meant. It's a union, right, of the two of you, a completely perfect kind of union. And for that to be fraught with, it's not perfect. It's fraught with all this stuff when you're doing it with all of this stress. Now, take that and you say, okay, but so like I have to be zero stress? There are people getting pregnant in all kinds of scenarios, and then we go to the comparison game, right? Well, but there are women that this, and women that, women that don't even try, women that don't want the kid, women that, and it's like, oh, the comparison game is just, it's totally unhelpful. Again, completely normal and human, and I have absolutely been there, looking at someone being like, how do you, like somebody really addicted to a substance, or somebody who doesn't take care of themselves, isn't, taking a bunch of supplements, seeing a bunch of providers, going to a doctor or a clinic, or just trying to do like, no sense, and no, or like everything organic, and not eating out, and trying all the things, and gluten-free or not gluten-free, dairy-free, don't eat meat, like it's like I wish I could hug my past self, and also just like I was so trying to do whatever it was that would get me to that point of success, that point of it's gonna work. And again, you can't control your way into something that's a divine spark of life. You can't control your way into that union. You can do things that better your chances. Absolutely. And this is a Soulful Pregnancy series, so I will share resources here that I think are useful from a scientific perspective, that do give you tangible ideas. One is It Starts with an Egg, which I think is an interesting book. It does give you some supplement ideas. It does give you that kind of tangible, but really the book Spirit Babies that I've already mentioned, that's the soulful or spiritual kind of level of, okay, you can do everything right from a body level. You can do all the tests, as we've heard already, as I've spoken about, right? You can get that unexplained diagnosis, or maybe you have a bunch of diagnoses and you're like, well, yeah, so like they're saying it's only going to work in this small percentage chance, or if I do IVF, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. It's like, first of all, again, my opinion here, not medical advice, so let's just cut that right away. But No doctor can 100% guarantee you anything. I will repeat that until my last day because it's been my experience. I'm not saying to not trust medicine, but I am saying no doctor can with 100% certainty tell you what is and is not possible for your body. I urge you to look at things from a physical, emotional, spiritual perspective. This is not, again, just my experience, but I mean, the best possible doctors, specialists in multiple countries over the course of multiple years could not, they could give me some answers, but they had no real guaranteed solution for me, because there is no guaranteed solution. Because even if you do IVF, okay, there's no guarantee that that works either. So there's no end all be all fix, because life, that spark of life, that union, that, and then in the next week, week 4, implantation and everything going perfectly to plan. I mean, this is a miracle. The fact that people just take this for granted, because you know what? I didn't think about this at all for, I don't know, 25 years. I didn't think about this at all. And it's a miracle. I've been so humbled with, and that's exactly why I think my journey in this regard has just been so tumultuous, because I needed the humbling, clearly. Life is such a miracle. The fact that from this, and again, we've talked about it, even the egg is forming, and maturing for months before we even get to this point of week 3. But here we are at week 3, spirit meets matter, this Big Bang creation, sperm and egg unified, a new soul, a new sacred spark of life. This is beyond us. And I think that's where the mystery of this, science is really good. Science is getting a lot of insights. There's a lot we can do with science. There's a lot we know, but there's so much more than we don't. And there's something about that mysterious black box. I think we'll never, there will always be the known and the unknown. There will always be the stuff that science has figured out and the stuff that science is still trying to figure out. And so that spark of life, I mean, no medical procedure can guarantee it. To me, in my belief system, from what I've been through, that's a God decision. At the end of the day, no matter what level of intervention, of support you have. And so I think it's in your best interest to, and I'm not saying now you have to go to church and figure out your, like, follow what I do or what anyone, but I think it's in your best interest to get spiritually aligned with the idea of having kids, if you want to have kids, not just physically aligned. Physical plane is one thing. Yes, your body, the terrain has to be there. You have to have the physical capacity. But I truly think you got to hit this at the spiritual level too, if you're in a position of facing any type of difficulties in this arena, because it's challenging you for a reason, right? And it's the same, I would say this to clients, like if a client's struggling with money, a client is struggling with relationships, a client is struggling with health, to me, any challenge in your life, it's challenging, it's hard, that forces you to stop and look at it, right? As long as your health is good, you don't really think about it, okay, I go about my day, but the moment you stub your toe, there is nothing else you're thinking about at that moment. And this is the same thing. If this is something that has been challenging for you in any way, even if you're really excited about it and it just, it hasn't happened for you yet, and it's maybe you're just starting out trying, but you're excited, when it doesn't happen right away, that's where we get tested, we get called to say, okay, how are you going to respond to this challenge? And so I see it pretty much the same as any challenge in life, where you've got to get on board physically, emotionally, mentally, and then spiritually. And That's what has gotten me through the past 4 years, because if I just focused, I mean, and I tried just at the physical level, and it wasn't enough for me. So that's just my 2 cents. Again, my experience. You have to find your way and what works for you. But for me, willing this into existence, trying to control, trying to be the decider, the creator of life, I'm the vessel, right? As a woman, I get to be the vessel. But I'm not I'm not the creator, Like because I can't, again, I could do things that make my body more likely or less likely, right? But I don't get to decide if that divine spark that's happening in this exciting week 3, I don't get to decide if that spark lasts for 50 years, 80 years, 20 years, 2 weeks. I don't get to decide that. And I think that's so hard. It's so humbling. It's when we look at, and this is where a lot of people are skeptical about God, right? As a creator. It's like, well, why would a creator let that divine spark fizzle out after 2 weeks? After 5 weeks, after 10 weeks, after 10 years? Why do children suffer? Why would a creator do that? And to me, every creation is unique. And we all have different amounts of time on this earth, and for different purposes and different reasons. And I can't venture a guess, I absolutely cannot explain every single every single person's timeline, right? But it's sort of like different animals, different species, I mean, have different life expectancies, have different experiences here. And who's to say that a longer time is better? I mean, in a lot of ways we think, right, a long-lived life is a good life. And in many ways, yes, you have more time in this particular body. So yeah, in some ways. But I mean, what if those 80 years or 90 years are fraught with absolute pain, suffering, agony, misery? What about that? Okay, well, there's a small fraction of people that yes, they live a long life and it's a good life. There's not a single person that doesn't have suffering in their life. Whether they live 30 years, 50 years, 80 years, 100 years, there's going to be some amount of pain and suffering there. Disappointment, sadness, anger. So why are we seeking only the happy, joyful, positive emotions? And then similarly, why are we seeking time as a measure for significance, for, again, good or positive? Somebody can have a profound impact on you in one conversation. And similarly, a baby can have a profound impact on you being there for 2 weeks. It can change your life. It changes the way you view life. If you have that spark of life, if you are pregnant and then you're pregnant and your body starts to change for any amount of time, that changes your life. And so who's to say that those 2 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, whatever, who's to say that amount of time signifies anything? The time is not significant. It's the gravity of the experience, of the change, of the meaning. And it could be you can get news, and again, you could have a conversation with someone, and in 1 hour, your whole worldview has changed, your whole essence has changed, you're never going back, you're a different person. And it's an hour-long conversation. So why could we not wrap our minds around the idea that pregnancy, for whatever amount of time it lasts, is not profound and life-changing and completely, I mean, we've already established it's miraculous, but I mean, life-changing and significant no matter the amount of time. So look, anyway, this one's a bit longer. I got on a bit of a rant here, but I would say, please, this week, I know it's tempting to want to control and to effort your way to the top of the mountain to have that spark happen for you. I've been there, and if that's what you're doing, I'm just so I see you, and I have been there, and so if that's what you're doing, that's okay. there is another way. You can surrender. You don't have to do that way. That isn't the only way to get there. If that's reassuring, I hope it's reassuring. But I would ask you this week to reflect on how, what do you think about the sacredness of creation, knowing that life begins in this miraculous way, that it is hidden in the darkness, and it is this spark of light in the darkness, that just reflecting on the sacredness of creation, how miraculous it truly is. Whether this is your month or not, whether this pregnancy stands the test of time or not, whether, it's perfect, we are all aiming at this next mountain, right? This week, it's I want fertilization. Then once you're pregnant, you want to get to week 12. Then week 12, but you want the baby to be healthy. Then you want the pregnancy to be good. Then you want the birth to be okay. Then you want, your child to meet standards of reading or writing, or to be, healthy and happy and well adjusted. And then they become a toddler and a young child and a teenager and then an adult. It doesn't end. And so what if we can just reflect on this week for what it is, which is such a divine union, your body's ability to do this, even if it's not this month. But wow, what a miracle. And the fact that you can be a part of that spark of life as a vessel for that life, absolutely humbling and amazing. I'm honored that I have the chance to go through any of this, even if it's successful or hasn't been successful, whatever that means. All of my pregnancies have been uniquely transformative and profound, no matter the amount of time. So I wish you a fun week 3 as you embark upon unifying of the sperm and egg here to have the Big Bang. That still makes me laugh. And join me next week to explore implantation and the deeper connection between the body and soul as your baby begins to take root. Take good care until then.